Here's Richard Hadley on Good Morning Britain. I hope I'm saying that name correctly. But this is, British mainstream daytime talk show. Here are some very harsh words for the Israeli strike on the WCK convoy. He calls it point blank an execution.
Which is what it was, effectively. This execution of 7 aid workers feels like some sort of watershed this morning, doesn't it? Because this time yesterday, as the news was breaking, the general assumption was, before the details came through, that it was probably some sort of awful collateral damage, that these workers had been killed incidentally.
That wasn't the general assumption. That was your assumption. That was the assumption of people like you who have given them the benefit of the doubt every day for the last 6 months until, like I said, as Pat Donahue put in his super chat, until some Europeans were killed. I mean, I've thought of that too. Look, welcome. Glad you're here. But did it take this? Apparently it did take this. Apparently that is what it took.
Of course it did. Well, you remember the reporter. I got to look up the name of that reporter because this comes up a lot, especially in this context, who said the soft part out loud on camera about Ukraine. Yes. It's just they look like us. You're just not used to seeing
You're not used to seeing this kind of violence amongst people who look like us, right?
Yep.
Against people who look like us.
Yep.
They could be us. Exactly. That kind of thing, exactly. Let's keep going.
Some other kind of conflict. But now we know that it was extremely targeted. The first vehicle was hit in a small convoy. Some of the workers survived and managed to get out and get into another vehicle. That moved off. That was hit. Then there was one third vehicle that was still proceeding, and about a kilometer later, that was hit. So they were hit 3 separate times. And just look at this. I mean, this is bullseye aiming. Absolutely no accidental collateral damage here at all. This is an execution.
Absolutely no collateral damage here at all. This is an execution. That could be the image that undoes Israel. And it is shameful that it took that to undo Israel when we've seen literally thousands of videos and images of Palestinian children, Palestinian women, Palestinian dads holding their dead babies, just devastated. Thousands of those images didn't evoke this kind of response from these guys. It took this to do it. Now, like I said, look, whatever gets you there, these are emergency circumstances. We need all hands on deck, so I don't mean to quibble. But if we're looking, this is going to be the image that ultimately seals Israel's fate as a pariah on the world stage because it's a smoking gun right there. That's the photo of the year so far, no doubt about that. A hole right through the roof of the car with the logo, shot right through the logo, World Central Kitchen, big, bold letters. And this is why we mentioned in the last segment that Max Blumenthal piece exposing their ties to the United States government, to the State Department, and to the IDF. They were giving meals to Israeli soldiers. They were feeding Israeli soldiers in October. And so you're telling me they didn't know that logo? They didn't know what that was? Of course they knew what that was. And they fired on it directly, like this guy says. Here, don't take my word for it. Take Newsman's word for it.
3 separate times. And just look at this. I mean, this is bullseye aiming. Absolutely no accidental collateral damage here at all. This is an execution.
Aiming, absolutely no collateral damage here at all. This is an execution. That is according to the mainstream British daytime TV talk news program. That's not us saying it. It's not Max Blumenthal saying it. It's not a random social media handle saying it. That is now a mainstream opinion that this was a deliberate, targeted murder. And it's too much for any of these people to be able to deny at this point. Who is left to make excuses for this? Who? This is why Caitlin Johnston warned all you idiots at the beginning, be careful what you say, because if you defend Israel now, you're going to end up defending shit like this or looking very stupid. And good on people who are willing to look stupid, who are willing to, at this point, say they were wrong. I applaud you for doing that. That takes guts to do. For those who are still not able to do this, I don't know what it's going to take. But thankfully, there aren't very many of you left. There really aren't.
I've mentioned that I've seen most of the rabid Zionists I know who are not getting paid, who are not cutouts, shut up. And now I am even starting to see some of them disown it, which, as far as I'm concerned, yes, welcome to the party, but I see a little self-interest in that as well. So I'm not all that sympathetic.
No, that's not what I meant. I just meant, look,
But it's
we need opinion to tank.
I know what
you
meant. I'm talking about something completely different. But I'm seeing like Jewish Zionists starting to say, "Not in my name."
Right.
People who started this with Am Yisrael High finally starting to come around to, this is disgraceful. We have to stop this slaughter, which again, you can litigate this being crocodile tears, but it does indicate a sea change in the conversation. When you're losing those people, when those people are coming out in public and not afraid of the stink eye they might get it next time they go to the synagogue, when they're coming out in public, as you say, who do you have left? Who do you have left who's not being paid by Israel?
It's just so frustrating. It's so frustrating because, look, I knew more about this than I knew about Russia-Ukraine, but on the day of the Russian invasion, I said this could have been avoided. This should have been prevented. Why is it that Americans are so wrong so often, always, really, always, when it comes to these kinds of issues? Why don't we as a population learn? After 9/11, we had the world on our side. George W. Bush had a 90% favorability rating. My father, a Bolshevik, a communist, was flying an American flag on the radio antenna of his car after 9/11. That shows you got some unity. When my dad's putting an American flag on his car, that means you have a unified country. That means you have a lot of goodwill. Right. Look at how quickly we burned through that. Look at how quickly we burned through that. That is not a lesson to you to question these things on day one, not on day 100 or 200 or 300. You have to question these things on day one. Otherwise, it's too late. It's too late. You've got 40,000 dead now. It's too late now. What are you going to do at this point? At what point will this population learn the lessons, not of 100 years ago history, very, very recent history? If the squandering of goodwill after 9/11 did not instill a skepticism in people, I don't know what will. I don't know what will. Maybe this will, because it all went so south so fast. We can hope. We can hope, and we could try our best. That's part of why we do shows like this, to try our best to instill in people, don't keep falling for the same bullshit over and over again, because it's not just bullshit. This gets people killed by the tens of thousands, by the hundreds of thousands. And it has to stop. It has to stop.
You have to remember, people will not defy the establishment of their society until the cost of conforming to it becomes greater than the cost of challenging it. Most people will go along with the narrative of the ruling class of their society until it's causing them too much pain, financial, social, philosophical. It has to be very grave mismatch between the interests of the people and the interests and proclamations of the establishment before you can really get the core non-player characters to start questioning their programming. I wrote an article about this. All societies depend on the people who don't think. Those are the people who keep it going, right? They're like ants. They get the signal in their antenna, and that's it. They repeat whatever comes in over the antenna. It's not until you force those people to start to wake up that you've really lost cultural cohesion and stability. Even if they're a minority, they just have to be a large enough minority.
Please clap.